Hi everyone, welcome back. Today is a very exciting video because we are trying new color correctors. It's been quite a while since we've done a color corrector video here on my channel, and Tarte recently released these. So these are the creaseless color correctors. They also released a new version of their creaseless concealer, and they also have the creaseless setting powder. So we're going to use all three of these today. I'm going to share what I think. I'm going to do some comparisons as always for the color correctors. As you probably know, I love color correcting. I do lots of videos on it here on my channel. I love finding the best color correctors for your dark circles or under eye discoloration. So I cannot wait to use these. And that's what we're going to be doing today. If you are new here, my name is Blair. I do all kinds of beauty content here on YouTube. I hope you'll stick around, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get started. So we're going to start with the color correctors. So these are the creaseless correctors. Now, Tarte previously had a creaseless concealer. I believe they still have it. I guess this is just an extension of that line because this is the creamy creaseless concealer, and these are new as well, the correctors. So I assume these are just adding on to the creaseless line, but I'm not really sure. But I was on the Tarte website because I was looking at the concealer, and I didn't even know that they had released these correctors. I was just kind of scrolling through the new arrivals page and I saw these. So, you know, I ordered them real quick because I love trying color correctors. So I got two of them. I got the lightest shade and the second lightest shade, which are Peachy Pink and Peach. So this is what the packaging looks like. They're really cute. They have this cute little pink lid. They look like the original creaseless concealer if you've seen that before. One thing I'm not a huge fan of, I can already tell you, is the correctors have like a little paintbrush applicator instead of like a traditional doe foot applicator, which is not a huge deal, but I just find sometimes these types of bristles can kind of get messed up when you're pulling them in and out of the component. So I don't love that, but that's a minor thing. So I'm going to swatch the two shades that I have. I was going to just get one, but then I figured I couldn't tell how light Peachy Pink was going to be. And I figured some of you probably want to see a comparison between Peachy Pink and Peach. So I just got both for the sake of the video, you know. So we have Peachy Pink right here and Peach right here. Something I'm excited about is Peachy Pink, like I said, is the lightest shade, and it's not so light that it looks white. If you remember, Tarte also released these about a year ago, the Shape Tape correctors. I did a video on these as well. I have the shade Peach here, and they also had a pink shade, and I had that at one time. It was not really pink. It was pretty much white with maybe just like the tiniest bit of red pigment in it. I mean, it basically looked white, so it didn't do a lot of color correcting for me. And the peach shade is on the darker side, so I wasn't a huge fan of this corrector in general. The formula was not terrible, but the shade range was not great in my opinion. So this is the Shape Tape corrector. This is the new creaseless creamy corrector in peach and Peachy Pink. Do you see how much more orange this peach, the Shape Tape one, looks compared to this? And that's kind of my issue with a lot of color correctors, is they're too orangey. They don't have enough pink in them. Typically, if you have a lot of blue and purple under your eyes, the peachy orangey tone will work, but you also need a little bit of a pink tone in there, especially on my skin tone. The really orangey peachy shades don't work as well as the ones that have a little bit of pink in them. So I was happy to see that they definitely have more pink in these shades, and the light one is not too light from what I can tell. Formula on the new one is very, very creamy and very, very thin. It's not nearly as liquidy though as the Shape Tape, which is up here. Feels like a nice formula though, so I'm excited to try these on my under eyes. So these retail for $30 and they come in 5 different shades. I ordered mine from Tarte.com, but they are available now on Ulta and Sephora as well. Okay, let's just get into it. We'll start with Peachy Pink, which is the lighter one, and we'll just do one on each eye. So I'm gonna go in on my right eye with Peachy Pink. The one thing I will say is this type of applicator is helpful for applying color corrector in a specific area. So you don't want color corrector in places that you don't need it. So that is one advantage to having a small little brush applicator like this. So maybe that's why they did that. I don't know. I'm gonna let it sit for just a minute before we blend. I'm actually gonna blend with their new, I think this is new. I bought this with the concealer. This is their concealer paw brush. And it came in a set with the concealer, so I just got the set. So you can see that was very, very easy to blend in. Definitely, you don't need a lot of product here. It definitely does kind of spread. I don't know that it's as pigmented as the Tarte Shape Tape Corrector. That one was extremely pigmented and it was so liquidy that you really had to be careful with the amount of product on that one. Whereas with this one, it's a little bit more creamy and not as liquidy. So it spreads, but not quite as much as the Shape Tape Corrector. So there is Peachy Pink under that eye. If you're familiar with my color correcting videos, then you have heard me say this many times. So I'm sorry if you've heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again. I don't like using a color corrector that is too light. You cannot use, or you can, but in my experience, it doesn't work as well to use a color corrector that is lighter than the discoloration that you're trying to disguise. Because if you put something light over something dark, you're not hiding anything. It may look like you are brightening because you're applying something light over something dark, but the darkness will peek through the light. So the best way to color correct, in my opinion, is to match the darkness. So get a color corrector that's about the same depth of color in terms of like the tone of the shade as your dark circles or whatever discoloration you have. And then if you want to add a little bit of brightness, go in with a little bit of a lighter concealer. But first you have to correct the darkness. You can't correct with a lighter product. In my opinion. This is just, I'm not a makeup artist, but I have tried a lot of color correctors. I've been trying them for, I mean, pretty much since the beginning of my YouTube channel. So I feel like I have a good bit of experience with them. But what I will say is that one is definitely a little bit lighter than my discoloration, but I don't think it's too light. I definitely think I can get away with it. Like, I think it looks pretty good on that eye. Whereas, like I was talking about earlier with this Tarte one, or the Shape Tape one, I wish I still had it so I could show you, but I ended up decluttering it. But the pink was just so light, it looked white under my eyes. This one is still a little bit lighter, but not too light like that one was. Let's go in with Peach on the other side. I'm using Peach on this side because my darkness is always darker on this eye. So I need, or I most likely would need, the darker color corrector over here. And I'm bringing a little bit of it over on the side as well because I have a vein on this eye that kind of runs right here, and I think that's why I see a little bit more darkness over here than I do on this side. I'm gonna use that same brush and just start tapping that in. I really, really like how thin this formula is. It is extremely thin on the under eyes, which is a good thing, especially if you are wanting to put concealer over the top, I would always recommend using a color corrector that is as thin as possible that will do what you need it to do in terms of color correcting. So hopefully you can see this eye is obviously not as bright as this eye because we matched this darkness I have here with the color corrector, whereas with this one we use something that's a little bit lighter but that has that peachy pink undertone. So it still does a little bit of correcting, but it brightens a little bit as well. I will say typically throughout the day when you use a color corrector that's too light or a little bit lighter than your darkness, throughout the day the darkness will kind of start to peek through more than it will on like this type of correction where we used a little bit of a deeper one and then we used a concealer to lighten it up over the top. So it's kind of personal preference and it's a little bit trial and error when it comes to color correcting. You just kind of have to figure out what works for you. Okay, so now that I've applied it on both eyes, I really like the way it's sitting on my under eyes. It's kind of, I would say, more of a natural finish. This one has been on my eye a little bit longer than the peach shade, but this eye, I mean, it still has a little bit of that kind of hydrated look under the eyes, but it's not overly dewy or matte. It's just kind of right in between. And I really like how it's sitting on both eyes. So far, so good. Not a lot of creasing that I'm noticing at all, even though they do say this is a creaseless concealer and a creaseless color corrector. If you have a lot of creases under your eyes, a product is going to crease there regardless of what product it is. So just keep that in mind. I know they say it's creaseless, so hopefully the creasing is minimal, but if you have creases, product is going to crease. Okay, now let's go in with the concealer. So this is the Creaseless Creamy Concealer. Like I said earlier, they've already had a creaseless concealer. I'm assuming this is just like a different version of it, kind of like they did with Tarte Shape Tape. They did the original Shape Tape and then years later they did the creamy Shape Tape. I'm guessing they're doing the same thing with this. And this is the shade 22N, which looks like this. I was worried this shade might be too dark, but it's actually a little bit light maybe for my self-tan, but oh well, it's okay. We'll make it work. And this concealer does have the doe foot. So the doe foot looks like this. It's kind of just a skinny, slightly angled doe foot, but this one does not have that brush tip applicator like the correctors do. So let's go in with this. I'll just do one eye at a time. And I'm gonna switch to a different brush for under my eye, or for the concealer. This is the Sigma F03 brush. So yeah, this, you see how far that just spread under my eyes? So you don't need a lot of this at all. It's very, 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 very creamy. Okay, so there is the eye with peachy pink and then 22N over the top. Looks pretty good. I would say less is definitely more with the concealer. I definitely could have applied even less of it, I think. I'm curious to see about the creaseless aspect on the concealer because the concealer is even like, it's a little bit more liquidy feeling to me than the corrector. That one is still kind of a liquidy texture, but it's a little bit more creamy. This one feels like it just spreads really easily because of the texture. Sometimes that can mean things crease more, in my opinion, that kind of texture. So I don't know, we'll see. But it looks pretty good as of now. Let's go in with the other side. I would say, I think these shades run a little bit on the light side because I want to say in Shape Tape, I used to get this same shade and I feel like it wasn't quite as light as this shade in 22N. So for the concealer, I would say I think it does run a little bit light. So you can see it applied. I mean, it's instant blending, like really, really quick. This is the eye with peach and concealer, and this eye has peachy pink and then concealer over the top. I don't know how apparent the difference will be on camera. Honestly, I would say they look pretty even in terms of the coverage. I don't think either of them is like a full coverage, so I would say these are definitely medium coverage products at the most. I was looking on the concealer description on Sephora, and it says, in one part it says the concealer is medium coverage, and then another part of it, it says it's full coverage. I would say this is definitely not full coverage, definitely medium at the most. And I would say the same about the corrector. I would say maybe even like light medium on the corrector. So if you need like extreme coverage, may not be for you. But overall, I mean, honestly, the two eyes really don't look that different. It's hard to compare them sometimes because this eye is always darker. It has more darkness than this eye. So it's kind of hard to compare. Also, it depends on how they look throughout the day as well. In my experience, like I said earlier, if you go with a lighter color corrector, sometimes it looks okay at first, but then throughout the day, it doesn't wear as well as if you went with one that is closer to your darkness and your discoloration. So it kind of depends on the wear as well. I'm gonna go ahead and do some blush and some bronzer, and then I'll come back and we'll finish up with the powder in the pink shade. Let's move into the powder. Now, I will say I have already tried this powder once. This is the Creaseless setting powder in the pink color. I tried this a few days ago and I couldn't really figure out how I felt about it. So it comes with a little puff. It looks like this. It's a little mini triangle puff. So you can see where I used it the other day. I tried using this with the puff, and after I applied it, I don't know if it was the powder or the puff or the combination, kind of removed the concealer underneath, so it made the darkness underneath kind of poke through. So I don't know if it was user error or what. So today I'm thinking I may apply it a little bit differently. I always struggle with the puff thing under the eyes because sometimes with other powders I'll do it and I think it looks fine, and then sometimes I do it and I don't like it at all. I'm going to use a brush first. I'm going to use the Makeup by Mario F3, and I'm going to use this small end because I like this a lot for powder. I've tried it many times for that. And another thing that's kind of annoying is the powder came like this. Like, I feel like there should have been a protective layer over the top or something, but there wasn't. It just came like this. I'm gonna get some on the brush, and then I'm gonna kind of go in the cap and swirl it around before I apply. I don't know what happened the other day, but I just didn't love it when I just went directly in with the puff. So before I apply the powder, I'm gonna take my concealer brush, the F03 from Sigma, just kind of go over everything. There's not a ton of creasing, honestly, but I always do this before I set anything just because if you set creases, they're gonna be there all day. So, okay, so let's go in with the powder on this brush. All right, we'll do the left eye first. I will say I did think, even though it kind of removed what was underneath the other day, it was extremely blurring. Like it almost looked scary under my eyes. It was so smooth. I don't know, the darkness was just peeking through after I did it. So I don't know what that was about. But in terms of the blurring quality, it was blurred, like smooth, silky smooth under the eyes. So that was good about it. So that eye has the powder. And this eye does not. Obviously with a brush, or maybe not obviously, but If you set your under eyes with a brush, you're definitely not getting as much of that blurring effect just because the nature of using a brush, it's fluffier, so the powder's not being packed on there like it is with a sponge. But there's pros and cons to both, because some people want the blurring effect, so they use a puff, but then you can also overdo it, and over time your under eyes look dry if you apply too much powder. But then with this, you don't get the dry caked on powder look, but you don't get as much of that blurring quality either. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But there is that eye, and I mean, it definitely looks pretty smooth. Definitely didn't do what it did the other day, picking up the product underneath. It looks pretty good. Let's go in and do the other eye. I guess we'll try the puff again. So I'm gonna get some of this powder onto my puff, and then I'm gonna really like tap it off well on the palm of my hand. So hopefully I don't get too much, and then just lightly set. So you can see, I mean, this side with the puff looks even more like matte and smooth than this side. And it doesn't look like it picked up any product today. I don't know, maybe I pressed too hard the other day when I did it. I don't know, it did something weird. I mean, honestly, both sides look good. It's just this side with the puff looks even more matte and even more smooth. This side still looks smooth, but not like airbrush smooth as the side with the puff. But if you're looking for a blurring under eye powder, I can confidently say this is one of the most blurring powders under the eyes that I've tried. Okay, I'm gonna finish my makeup, then I'll come back and we'll wrap up the video, and I will kind of compare these correctors to some of the other correctors in my collection. So I'll be back. Hi, I wanted to put this clip in here just so you could see in natural light. It's been like 4-ish hours since I filmed the last clip, and I wanted you to see what my under eyes look like. So this is the eye with Peach corrector, concealer, and powder, and then this is the eye with the peachy pink color. Honestly, they both look really good to me. I did want to just point out though, because I think you can really see it, or you can kind of see it here. The eye with peachy pink, which is this one, some of the darkness is kind of starting to peek through here much more than it is on this side. And I do think the reason for that is the lighter color corrector. So I just kind of wanted to show you so you could kind of see what I'm talking about. It's not bad, and I could definitely get away with it, but I just kind of wanted to point that out because I do notice that throughout the day that the eye with a lighter corrector, typically it will start to show through throughout the day, which is one of the reasons why I like to go darker, or at least match the depth of the darkness under my eyes. But overall, concealer and powder looks really good, and I'm really happy with these products so far. All right, I finished the rest of my makeup, and I wanted to end the video with comparing to some of my other color correctors that I have in my collection. I have a lot of them. I've tried a lot of them, and this formula reminds me the most of two that I have, and they're two that I love. In fact, they're like two of my top color correctors, and it's these two, the Cali Ray Hideaway and the Huda Beauty Faux Filter. I'm gonna swatch them and kind of show you the comparison in color, but the formula reminds me a lot of these. I think it's most similar to this one from Cali Ray. This is actually the newest color corrector that I've tried until I tried these. So this is pretty new to my collection, but this shade in particular and this formula it really reminds me of this one. So this is the shade Cool Sunrise right here. So Cool Sunrise is, I would say, has a little bit more orange in it than either of these two shades from Tarte, but the texture and the formula reminds me the most of the Cali Ray one. It's very thin, very, very creamy. Okay, so this is the peach shade in the Tarte, and this is Cool Sunrise from Cali Ray. Consistency wise, very similar, but I hope you can see how much more pink this has in it than this. This looks more orangey to me. This is Cool Sunrise and this is Peach in the Tarte. So of the two shades, I actually prefer the Tarte shade because, like I said in the beginning, I like something that has more pink in it. For my skin tone and my under eyes, that works the best. If you have more of a medium skin tone, medium, deep, you can get away with something that has a little bit more orange in it. But I find that typically with fair, light, medium skin tones, if you have a lot of blue and purple under your eyes, typically a peach will work, but it needs to have a little bit of that pink tone in there. So there is Peachy Pink from Tarte, Peach from Tarte, and then Cool Sunrise from Cali Ray. So honestly, I prefer the tones of these than this. I can make the Cali Ray work. As long as it has a little bit of a peachy undertone to it, it will work for me as a color corrector. But if I'm choosing like my perfect corrector and my perfect color, I like something with more of a pink undertone. But I do think the Tarte formula, very similar to Cali Ray. I would say Tarte is maybe even thinner than Cali Ray. Cali Ray is also very thin in formula, but I honestly think the Tarte ones are even a little bit more thin. So I would say if you're looking for anything more than a medium level of color correction, neither of those formulas will be for you. Now, the Huda Faux Filter is also very thin, a little bit more liquidy. In the Huda, I have Cherry Blossom, which is here, which this is the most pink you can probably see there. This is like a true pink undertone, pink corrector. So unless you have a fair or a light skin tone, that shade might not work for you. And then we have Pink Pomelo down here from Huda. Pink Pomelo is probably most similar, honestly, to Peach in the new Tarte one. The shades are pretty similar. I still think the Tarte has a little bit more of a pink tone to it, but I would say it's most similar to this one. The Huda formula is also very thin and lightweight, but it is definitely more pigmented than the Tarte and the Cali Ray. So I would say if you are needing more coverage, like a medium coverage, maybe medium veering into full for color correction, I would go Huda. If you like something lighter weight and you need just a little bit of something to help darkness maybe that's peeking through your concealer, or you just feel like your concealer is not working well for you, you want just a little bit of color correction, I would go for Cali Ray or this new one from Tarte. If you need a lot of color correction, I would not recommend a liquid formula at all. I would go for something like the Peachy corrector that's in a little pot, the Bobbi Brown corrector, the Charlotte Tilbury corrector. Those are cream formulas and they will typically give the fullest coverage for a color corrector. Overall, my thoughts on these new products from Tarte. The thing I'm most excited about of the three things are definitely the color correctors. I think these are really nice. I will see how they wear and I will leave a note in the description box how my under eyes wear in general, but based on applying these and how they looked after a few minutes, the colors, the formula, the coverage, I really like these. If you're looking for a light medium color corrector, I think you would really like this. Now, I don't know about the whole creaseless aspect of it. Like I said earlier, if you have creases, it's gonna crease. If you have a lot of creases, that's just how it is with the product. So don't buy this thinking it's not gonna crease. If you have under eye creases, it will most likely crease. But you have to find a formula that will crease the least amount for you and that will work for your under eyes. But I think these are good. I'm very happy with the color selection. The only thing I'm not crazy about is the wand, the little brush tip, but that's a very minor thing for me. Overall, I think these are nice. I will keep using them for sure, and I'll let you know in future videos how these rank up against the Cali Ray or the Huda, because like I said, those are two of my top color corrector formulas. So I need to keep testing these. I would also like to test these together, so putting a little bit of both shades and mixing them together. I think that might also work really well. The correctors I would recommend if they sound like they would meet your needs. The concealer is fine. I don't think this concealer is like anything super revolutionary or anything to write home about. I think it's nice. I do think it's a little bit more liquidy than the corrector, and I do think it's interesting because they call it a creaseless concealer, but to me this type of texture is what has the biggest tendency to crease. So I don't know about the creaseless claim, but it's a nice concealer. It's decent coverage. I would say medium at the most though, definitely not a full. And I do think the shades run a little bit light based on shades I remember in the Shape Tape concealer. So keep that in mind. But overall, I think it's nice. I'm more impressed with the color correctors though. And then the powder. The powder, I like. I hope it wears well today, because if it does, I think this is a really nice loose powder for the under eyes. I really like it today. I like it both ways. I like it with the brush and with the puff. I think my under eyes look incredibly smooth, like incredibly smooth. Probably one of the most blurring and smoothing under eye powders that I've tried ever. This I think is going to be a winner. I want to obviously see how it looks throughout the day. Again, I'll let you know in the comments what I think, and I'll let you know in future videos as well. But I hope this video was enjoyable or helpful. If you are new, I hope you'll subscribe, and if you are interested in these products, I will link them below in the description box, as well as in YouTube shopping for you. I do use affiliate links that support this channel when you use them. If you're not already, make sure to follow me over on Instagram at simply.blair and TikTok simply.blair1. I'm actually doing a color corrector series over there right now where I do a different corrector each day. Try it on, give you my thoughts, what I like, what I don't like. So make sure you're following me at simply.blair on Instagram. And I think that's everything for today. I will see you again very soon for another video. Remember, simply be you.